Well, farmers are fuming, calling for animal rights group AUSSIE Farms to be stripped of its charity status after it launched an online map revealing addresses and contact details of hundreds of farms across the country.
This map, published online by animal rights group AUSSIE Farms, claims to show exactly where Australian animals are being exploited. More than 5,000 farms, abattoirs, animal breeders, feedlots, even racecourses and zoos are listed, with home addresses and some contact details published for all the world to see.
These are people's homes. And in fact, children live on these homes. These people are doing nothing wrong by farming. It's absolutely disgusting.
Critics say the map is wildly inaccurate, that it includes old, closed-down farms and even organic farms. AUSSIE Farms implies they're all exploitative, even if operators claim to be following regulations. And now the group is calling for the public to upload photos and videos of every site to the map, leaving farmers furious.
The reality is they've got none of this information right. They've simply done it as a stunt. And to have an attack map that you are asking people to go and trespass on these farms is abhorrent. It's wrong.
There's no doubt animal activists have exposed horrendous cruelty in the past. Shocking secret footage has changed the way we regulate some industries for good. But today, the project contacted PETA, the RSPCA, Animals Australia and a number of other animal rights groups. None of them wanted to weigh in on this particular controversy. Most of us obviously want to support cruelty-free, ethical farming. But is pointing the finger first and finding the facts later ethical in itself?
Well, Executive Director of AUSSIE Farms, Chris Delforce, joins us now from Melbourne, while President of the National Farmers Federation, Fiona Simpson, joins us from Canberra. Good evening to both of you, but I want to start with you, Chris. Why did you publish this map?
Over the last 8 years or so, we've been going to farms and slaughterhouses across the country, just trying to capture and show to the public the reality of modern farming. We think that most people are opposed to animal cruelty. Most people consider themselves animal lovers. And yet the reality of modern farming, where you've got tens of thousands of animals crammed into these sheds, and you might have up to 20 sheds on a single property, that reality is hidden from them. People don't know what you can actually get away with when you're farming animals. Things like the mutilation of piglets without anaesthetic, things like the grinding up of male chicks in the egg industry on their first day of life because they're useless to the industry. They'll never be able to lay eggs. These are standard practices that are perfectly legal. Most people would be horrified if they knew about them. So this is all about just laying that bare and letting people see what the reality is and allowing them to make up their own mind rather than just having the side of the story that the industry puts forward.
Fiona, if this is all just about transparency, letting us all in on what happens on farms, what's the problem with it?
Look, seriously, the picture that Chris has painted is not of Australian agriculture. Maybe that's true in some of the countries overseas, and some of the bigger countries certainly have some more larger scale farms than we do. But here in Australia, we are about family farms. We've got over 90% of our farms in Australia are family farms. They're mums and dads and kids, most of whom who live on their farm. And so by having their private and personal details published, they've got phone numbers, they've got photographs, they are being called evil. You've heard what Chris thinks about farmers. This is a group of people who are extreme in their views. I think really it's just stepping over the line. It's turning what is an absolutely philosophical belief about, and it's an extreme philosophical belief about animals, and it's actually turning that into a terrorist activity and branding these people. It's not just about transparency, it's branding mum and dad farmers, people who just every day get up, they love what they do, they live with their animals, they love their animals, they work with their animals,
sure.
And every day they do that, and they're getting targeted as some sort of a criminal. It's just unfair.
We need to let Chris respond to that. She's just called you extreme and terrorist activity is the description of what you're doing.
Most farms in Australia are family owned. That's true. That doesn't change the fact that a lot of them have sometimes millions of animals, or at least hundreds of thousands of animals on these properties.
You've just called them factory farms. You've just called them factory farms.
That's what they are. When you're intensively farming livestock, that's what a factory farm is.
It's obvious you haven't been on a lot of Australian farms. It's obvious you haven't.
Chris, could I just get you to respond to the claim that your views are extreme and that these are terrorist-like activities?
All we're trying to do is force transparency on an industry dependent on secrecy. I think most people will consider...
And how do you do it, Chris? How do you do it?
Let's take one example of
Tell people how you actually get people together and come onto farms. That's what you
Fiona
need
and
to
the
tell
industry
people.
says is humane. Gas chambers in pig slaughterhouses.
Tell people how you do it. Tell people how you do it. Tell people how you do it. How you do it. How do you organise your people to come on farms? How do you do that? You tell people how you do it. Because my families that are ringing me today are telling me about how you've come onto their farms, how you've got secret groups happening, and I've gone online and checked out your groups. They're all secret. We can't check out who's coming onto our farms, yet you've been able to publicise our details. Is that fair?
Fiona, if I can just interrupt, wouldn't you acknowledge that activists have done a really good job at exposing malpractice in your sector?
Nowadays, on our farms in Australia, we absolutely believe in the humane and the good treatment of animals. We place animal welfare at the highest levels. We have numerous amounts of regulation and transparency, and Australia has led the world in that regard. And we've led the world in other improvements as well. So in terms of sow stalls in piggeries, you know, we're one of the few countries that has committed to the phasing out of sow stalls in piggeries.
To do that 2
now
years
we can
ago.
do that. Well, we're still doing it. You know, we can
You've still
do
got
that.
farrowing crates, which are actually the same size as sow stalls. And most intensive pig farms still have farrowing crates. Where's the campaign to get rid of farrowing crates?
Look, let's look at how we
exactly
create
the
change.
Same as sow stalls.
Industry
Pigs are in
is
there for
calling
6
out
weeks
change.
in these tiny cages. These mother pigs, they've just given birth. They can't take more than a step forwards or backwards. They can't turn around. They're confined in these cages for 6 weeks. How is that humane? It's only necessary because you've got so many animals confined into such a tiny space. You can't do it naturally.
This is really, this is an extremist group.
The things
they
that you
act
can
as
do
terrorists.
to animals
They are coming on
only work
farms.
if you let each other speak.
Exactly.
No one can actually hear if you're both talking over the top of each other. So if we just get a response to that from Fiona, and I think we'll probably wrap it up there.
So at the moment, you know, the response is that these are mum and dads and kids. What we're hearing today is mum and dads who are now actually being scared about what they are actually putting their children through. This is now about being scared. This is about them being scared. This is about people who give their lives to look after. I thought we were actually looking after them. This is about mums and dads.
What about them having their throats cut while conscious? What about male chicks being killed by the millions in grinders because they're useless to the industry?
This is about mums and dads and children
all
actually being able to go about their life on a daily basis
to a dog or a cat.
and do legally what they're allowed to do.
We do appreciate you both coming in tonight to talk about this.
This is about legally being able to do what they need to do.
We don't want to let this descend into just sort of shouting over the top of each other, but we appreciate there are divergent views here, and we're grateful to you both for coming on television and exploring them tonight.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Fiona.
Thank you.
We've got a heap more projects to come after this break.